There are moments when a person pauses long enough to feel the quiet movement of existence, moments where the mind drifts toward the idea that life is not simply a sequence of events, but a small ripple in a much larger ocean. An ocean made of time, thought, memory, and the ancient light of distant stars. And in that brief pause, something inside us asks why we feel so aware of our own story when the universe itself carries on with no effort at all. We sense the enormity above us and the fragility within us. And somehow the two ideas coexist without conflict, as if being human is the strange bridge between the scale of galaxies and the weight of personal experience. People often imagine the universe as a distant thing, a silent stage where matter shifts slowly in patterns too vast for the mind to fully grasp. But the truth is that we are not separate from those patterns, because the atoms in every heartbeat and every breath were once parts of stars that lived and died long before humanity arrived. And that simple fact quietly reminds us that we are built from the same ingredients as the cosmos itself. When this idea settles into the mind, it changes the way ordinary life feels, because even the most familiar routines become part of something older and grander, something that does not depend on our understanding to exist, yet still invites us to explore it. There is a strange comfort in knowing that the universe does not expect perfection from us, that it is indifferent to our mistakes, yet generous in its permission to let us think, grow, and question. And this freedom becomes one of the most powerful tools a person can hold. The ability to imagine new possibilities has carried our species from the first sparks of curiosity to machines that orbit the planet, and from simple questions around campfires to theories that explain the behavior of light, matter, and time. Through all of this, the desire to understand ourselves has remained constant, because self-awareness is both our greatest gift and our greatest uncertainty. Imagine standing beneath a clear night sky where the stars look almost close enough to touch, and imagine letting your thoughts drift far beyond the surface of your concerns, moving past the familiar shapes of worry and responsibility until you find yourself quietly observing the world rather than reacting to it. In those moments, a person begins to feel the strange duality of being human, because we are both tiny and significant at the same time. A brief moment in cosmic history, yet capable of contemplating that history with an intensity that no other known species has achieved. This ability is not an accident. It is the natural result of millions of years of evolution shaping a brain that can recognize patterns and imagine outcomes before they exist. Our lives often feel chaotic from the inside, with decisions thrown at us faster than we can comfortably handle. But when viewed from a wider perspective, the chaos becomes a kind of order, a pattern shaped by choices, experiences, and the constant desire to improve. Every person carries a private universe of memories that influence the way they see the world. And these memories form invisible constellations that guide the direction of our thoughts. Understanding this gives us the opportunity to reshape our own patterns, because the mind is not fixed. It grows and adapts every time we question our assumptions or learn something new. It is remarkable that consciousness can observe itself, that the mind can step outside its own thoughts long enough to analyze its behavior and adjust its direction. And this ability is what makes introspection so powerful. When we ask ourselves why we feel a certain way, or why we respond to certain problems with fear or hesitation, we begin to unravel the hidden mechanisms that shape our decisions. This process is not always comfortable, but it is essential for growth, because without understanding our own patterns, we risk repeating them without meaning or purpose. There is a quiet strength in recognizing that every question we ask has roots in our desire to expand our awareness, and this desire is a fundamental part of being human. Curiosity is not a luxury, it is a survival mechanism. And throughout history, the people who pushed beyond their comfort zones were the ones who shaped the future. Whether it was the first person to harness fire, the first to navigate open waters, or the first to map the motion of planets, each breakthrough began with a mind that refused to accept the limits of the familiar. When we look at our own lives through this lens, even the small steps become meaningful, because every improvement, no matter how minor, is part of a larger trajectory. The universe itself grows through gradual processes where tiny changes accumulate over vast periods of time, and in many ways human growth mirrors that slow cosmic rhythm. We do not transform overnight. We evolve through consistent curiosity, consistent effort, and the willingness to face the unknown with patience rather than fear. As we move through life, we carry the impression that time is something pushing us forward, but in reality, time is more like an open landscape, and our choices carve the paths we walk through it. Some paths are smooth, some are difficult, but each one teaches us something about ourselves and about the strange experience of being alive. Even the challenges become valuable when seen through the perspective of growth, because they reveal strengths we did not know we had and help shape the architecture of our character. The universe is vast, but our lives are intimate, and somewhere between those two scales lies the place where meaning forms. Meaning is not discovered, it is created through the way we interpret our experiences, and this creation gives each person the power to change the way they interact with the world. By choosing curiosity over doubt and awareness over habit, a person can gradually shift their inner landscape, bringing clarity to their thoughts and direction to their actions. When we begin to realize that awareness is something we can shape, the world around us becomes more flexible, and even the most ordinary experiences gain depth. A conversation becomes an opportunity to understand someone else's inner universe. A quiet moment becomes a chance to notice the rhythm of your own thoughts, and a challenge becomes a test that reveals how far you have come. Growth is not always visible day by day, yet over time it becomes unmistakable, much like the slow motion of stars across the sky that only reveals itself when we compare the present to the past. The universe has been unfolding for billions of years, and within that unimaginable span of time, the existence of humanity occupies only a tiny fraction. Yet in that fraction, we have developed the ability to observe, measure, and reflect on the cosmos with increasing precision. This capacity to question the world and ourselves is one of the most extraordinary phenomena in nature, because it shows that consciousness is not just an accident. It is an emergent property of complexity. As our understanding grows, our questions become more refined, and our sense of perspective expands outward like a wave rippling through the fabric of space and time. Many people move through life without realizing how powerful perspective can be, because perspective shapes the meaning of every experience we have. When we view ourselves as isolated individuals drifting through a chaotic world, life feels heavy and unpredictable. But when we step back and recognize that all of us are part of a much larger pattern, the complexity becomes easier to navigate. Our struggles stop feeling like personal failures and start looking like universal challenges that every conscious being must face as it learns to understand its own place in the world. One of the most important realizations a person can have is that thoughts are not fixed objects. They are temporary constructions that rise from memory, emotion, and environment. This means we are not defined by the thoughts that pass through our minds, but by the choices we make in response to those thoughts. By observing them rather than being controlled by them, we gain the ability to choose what kind of person we want to become. And this choice is the foundation of genuine freedom. It is not the absence of limitation, it is the understanding that we can change the way we live within the limitations we have. Every person carries within them the potential for deeper clarity, and clarity emerges when we learn to separate what matters from what only distracts us. Much like astronomers filter light from distant galaxies to isolate their true patterns, we can filter the noise in our minds to find the ideas that guide us forward. This practice does not require perfection. It requires patience. And with enough patience, the confusing aspects of life begin to form a coherent structure. In that structure we find direction, and in that direction we find purpose. Purpose itself does not have to be grand or dramatic. It simply needs to be aligned with the values that make us feel most alive. Some people find their purpose in creation, others in discovery, others in helping. But all forms of purpose share a common thread. They make us feel connected to something larger than our individual concerns. This connection can come from family, from learning, from community, or from the pursuit of understanding. And each path leads to a sense of fulfillment that grows over time. There is something profoundly moving about the idea that a mind shaped by stardust can reflect on its own existence and choose to grow. The universe does not force us to become better, yet it offers endless examples of transformation, from stars that collapse into new forms, to ecosystems that adapt and evolve. If we choose to align ourselves with this natural rhythm of change, we begin to see that growth is not separate from our nature. It is one of the most authentic expressions of it. We grow because the universe itself is a story of growth, and we are one of its recent chapters. As we move through our lives, we often underestimate the influence we have on others, not through grand gestures, but through small moments of presence, patience, and authenticity. A single conversation can shift the direction of someone's thinking. A simple act of kindness can alter the texture of someone's day, and a thoughtful question can spark a new realization that reshapes a person's inner world. These small interactions accumulate just like starlight, traveling outward farther than we expect and reaching places we will never see. When we understand this, we begin to treat our moments with more care, knowing that every choice carries more weight than we initially assume. The world becomes less random and more interconnected, and we start to feel responsible not only for our own growth, but also for the environment we create through our actions. This responsibility is not a burden. It is an opportunity to shape the future in ways that honor both our potential and our place in the cosmos. There is a quiet courage in acknowledging that we do not have all the answers, and that uncertainty is not a flaw, but a natural state of existence. The unknown has always been part of the human journey, from the earliest migrations across continents to the modern exploration of deep space. And each step into the unknown reflects the same ancient curiosity that lives within us today. When we accept uncertainty instead of resisting it, we free ourselves to explore without fear, and exploration becomes the pathway to greater understanding. In the vastness of the universe, we are small, yet in the depth of our awareness, we are immense. And this contrast is one of the most beautiful aspects of being human. We occupy a space between the macro and the micro, between stars and cells, between galaxies and thoughts, and within that space we create meaning through our experiences. Life becomes richer when we embrace this duality, because it shows that we are both observers of the cosmos and participants in it. Every day presents an opportunity to refine the way we think, to question the assumptions we carry, and to move one step closer to the person we wish to become. Growth does not require constant intensity. It requires consistent intention. And with that intention, each day becomes part of a larger story. Over time, the story takes shape, and we begin to see how every challenge, every success, and every quiet moment contributed to the formation of our character. In the end, the most profound realization is that awareness itself is a form of creation, and the way we shape our awareness shapes the world we live in. When we choose curiosity over fear, growth over stagnation, and perspective over reaction, we align ourselves with the direction of the universe, which has always been a direction of expansion. In that alignment, we find meaning, and in that meaning, we find the clarity to continue forward with purpose.